My name's Leonie Bolt, and I went from high school troublemaker and long-time backpacker to accidental entrepreneur. After 15 years working as a professional photographer and running my own studio, I grew into becoming a personal empowerment and business mentor to help other women to follow their passions and find their purpose too. I've learnt to pave my own way through life, and now I empower others to do the same, to break through their limiting beliefs and empower them to shine. Welcome to the Empowered to Shine podcast, where we dive deep into creating a life by your own design. Welcome to the Empowered to Shine podcast. My name's Leonie. I'm your host, and we have a very special guest today, Eugenia Oganova. Eugenia is a clairvoyant business strategist, personal transformation expert, and messaging energetics coach with over 20 years experience. She specializes in helping coaches in the spiritual and personal transformation niche by consciously creating from the quantum field using their unique soul design. Welcome, Eugenia. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, Leonie. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. And I love what you're about. I love the juxtaposition of energetics and strategy. I love to work with that with my clients as well. And I have to say that the last few years, I've really noticed how important it is to be in the right space energetically to make what you want to create happen. So I'm really excited to dive into this with you. Tell me a little bit about how did you get to where you are today? Just a quick recap on your story and who you are.
Well, my story is kind of an unusual because most people study to become whatever it is that they do, and I do everything backwards. So I came into this lifetime being clairvoyant, which means I see timelines, possibilities, I see opportunities for people, and it's not something I've asked for, it just is. And it's always been there. So when I was 14 years old, I was already seeing clients and helping them with their life purpose, helping them with figuring out sort of direction in life. And as my life progressed, I realized that I myself have a lot of strengths, not just in the multidimensional access to the things I see and understand, and got to understand more, of course, as I was growing up, but also very practical application that a lot of times I found that people couldn't strategize how to get to whatever they felt was their thing. And I could not only describe the thing that they felt, but also, well, that's how you get there. And it was so obvious to me and so not to them that after a while, I kind of started to get like, oh, I'm here to help more with application of the purpose, not just let me figure out what it is that I'm meant to do, but how to do it. And over the years, it progressed into a lot of my clients just happened to be telling me like, oh, thank you so much for help with my marketing, or, oh, this thing you said, I just changed that in my messaging and it attracted this amazing clients. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing? Like, I didn't know I was doing it, but because they had businesses, and I have those skills, they kind of naturally fit in together. So that's how I became a business coach, which is kind of funny because I think of myself more as a transcension mentor. I help people wake up and transform, but also bring abundance into their life in a material sense. And because I've always been an entrepreneur, I've never had a job. So I know what it means to be an entrepreneur in every possible way. I've always made money doing it. I got very good at learning many different techniques and strategies, but then noticing that not all of them work for everybody. So I kind of started to customize like, oh, for you, this would work, for you, that would work. And that's how I pretty much ended up doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, because it's the how is really important. That's obviously where everyone gets stuck and they end up buying more courses and getting more mentors and following someone else's strategy. And you're right, if it's not aligned, it's not going to work for you. And we all have a different design. So tell us a little bit about soul design, how you find out someone's soul design. What is soul design? And how does that help you to help entrepreneurs create their structure?
Well, soul design is sort of the term I invented. It's a combination of factors. So it has some of the astrological parts. It has a lot of my clairvoyant perception just from the field. I can read somebody's soul contract. And again, not something that I like even know how I do it. I just know it. So that there is that. There's also some of the patterns in how their energy moves. I'm sort of the queen of patterns. I see unconnectable things that to me look totally perfectly connected, but to people it's always a revelation. So I combine a lot of these things from human design, from Kabbalah, from I Ching, from the Chinese system, from understanding quantum mechanics. I have a lot of education in the physics and quantum theory and all that. So I use quantum field harmonics and the energetics of it as well, and the personal downloads that I get about the individual that I'm connecting with. So out of all of that, what I see, if we kind of like simplify what it means for the person, is what are the gifts you're bringing? Like, what are you meant to deliver to the world? What are the gifts that you have that are your own blessings that you meant to use for yourself? And not necessarily for the world, but you need to capitalize on them. Because a lot of times this is the part people miss. They think that their blessings are for the world. They don't value the gifts that they have and don't end up capitalizing on the things that they have, because then they think selfish. And it's like, no, those are the things you're actually meant to build yourself on. Also, what are the karmic issues? Like, what is the stuff you're dragging along that needs to be cleaned up, either let go of or cleaned up as in your behavior must change? And what are the areas that you're not meant to do? That's also always a revelation for people, because we're also programmed and conditioned and imprinted by our families with, this is what I should do, this is how I should be, I'm this kind of a person. And then when we start looking at the design, a lot of times some pieces are actually not part of that person's design at all. And then it's such a relief. Oh, I always felt that was so hard. No matter how much I try, it doesn't work. It's like, yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Like, you can just let the whole area go. So then once we know what are kind of the strengths, the weaknesses, the karmic negatives, the karmic blessings, and the big gift you're bringing, we attach it to, so all of that is like your soul expertise and your karmic patterns. We then attach it onto the how. Like, practically, you want to have a business, you want to generate income doing it. Great. Let's figure out how we can use all these things you have, how that becomes your marketing and promotion of the gift. What is the gift and how you need to build an offer around the gift if you don't have one, or if you do, how to modify it. And then from that standpoint, how to actually sustainably maintain. That's the part that I find, like, at the beginning stages of the business, a lot of times it's about, what is my expertise? How do I like start promoting it? But if I work with someone who's already like, okay, I'm at 6 figures, like I have a business, I know what I'm doing, I have clients, but some are crunchy, or I can't seem to maintain marketing, or every time I try to scale, I burn out. You know, do I need to like hire a team of 20 people? Then we start looking at like, well, what is in your design? Because some people really do need to hire a team. Other people really shouldn't. It would burn them out if they did. Some people need to modify what they're promoting to minimize. Other people need to open up what they're promoting because they've been too narrow. So we start looking at those things, and that's the sustainable factor. That's, I think, is so missing from the current marketplace. The idea that business is not just like, how do I build it to get paid? It's, how do you sustain it so it becomes a life that you're loving, that you're living the life you actually love, that there's space, that, like, the way I teach my clients, I always hear this thing that, like, oh my God, I'm selling this, but I don't feel like I'm selling. That's good. That means we found alignment. Or I'm promoting this, I'm doing this marketing, or I'm in the middle of this launch, but it doesn't even feel like anything. It just feels like, oh, I'm just talking. I'm just good. That means we found the aligned way. Because if it feels like you're pushing, you're forcing, you're pressuring yourself, that's a clue you're not in alignment with your design.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you're trying everything and nothing's working. It's so great to have you in their back pocket to just kind of go, well, this is why it's not working for you. Let's strip that back and get rid of everything that's not working. And that, I can imagine that would be such a relief.
It is a lot of letting go that people end up doing if they're already at the higher level of business. If they're at the beginning of the business, then, I mean, you can't avoid doing work. Like, I'm not one of those coaches that's going to say, just meditate and magic happens. Like, no, you got to do the work in business. You got to actually build it. So anybody who built a business to 6 figures or up knows that there was a lot of work to do it at the beginning. But you can focus on like 3 things instead of 200 things. You can focus on the right things for you. So then you know that it's going to build to where you want to be instead of pressuring yourself. And if you're already at six figures, that's where the letting go is. Like, okay, you have arrived there with all this baggage. Now let's see, what do you even need? Do you even love it? Maybe you outgrown it. There's so many times that I see that people outgrown the stuff that they're promoting, but they keep promoting it because it works. And it's like, yeah, but that's not sustainable, because can you see yourself 5 years from now still doing this? And then they start to feel like they just want to shoot themselves. Yeah, that means we gotta modify this. And every time it's like, oh, but I have to risk again. Like I've risked before the six figures. Like, do I have to do it? And it's a different thing. It's not anymore a risk in the form of like, I have no idea, I'm just going to jump off the cliff and see what happens. It's more like you have wings and you learn how to use them. And yeah, now you still got to go off that mountain to the next one. But at least you now have the skill to do this properly. So all of that is part of living in alignment with your, well, natural rhythms, with your soul design patterns, with how and what you meant to bring. A lot of times people promote stuff that they have learned. So like they went to school, they got a certification, and now I am something certified coach, let's say. Yeah. And then there's 200,000 more of the same certified coach. And then they wonder why no clients happen. Yeah. When actually the uniqueness part is missing. So usually when people realize that, it hits the wound of, oh, I'm not good enough. Yeah. You know? Like, oh, I'm not unique enough. Oh, I'm not special enough. So I shouldn't do it. Oh, I'm not meant to do it. When actually it has nothing to do with that. I always tell my clients to separate the skill from expertise. Expertise is what you're born with. Skill is what you learned. Skill is an add-on to the expertise. And great, the more skills you have, awesome. You know, somebody can know how to like do energy work and attach that to being a relationship coach. Somebody can know how to do nutritional something and attach that to being a confidence coach. Like you have to find who you are. That's the expertise. And that's part of what I do. And then the skills, we just figure out how to add it in a package. Yeah. That makes you.
That's fabulous. So what led you to understand the link between strategy and energetics, and how you could actually help your clients to create that bond?
Lack of strategy ability in my clients. That's what led me to it, to simply answer that. Because from the start, majority of my clients have been always very conscious, very self-aware people. They're not somebody who picked up a self-help book yesterday. They're somebody who's been on this journey for a long time. And it's not like, what's my purpose? It's more like, okay, I already kind of know this is where I'm going. This is what I'm learning, but I want a next level and I need a teacher. I don't know where to, like how to open up that door. That's where I would come in. But when a lot of those people then also did their soul work, which for them was healing practice or some sort of a community that they led, or they were a spiritual teacher of some sort, or they were downloading some amazing, I don't know, DNA activation to a nutritional thing, or how to bring light energy into food and lose weight and whatever. Like there's so many magical things out there, but they were not making any money. And that part always confused me, because I've always made money out of like, I can sell the light to the sun and the sun will purchase it. Like I have this part of my design because I embody abundance. So being in abundance means it's all here. Yeah. So I find that majority of people do not have that code. And that's part of my blessing is I have it. I didn't have to do anything for it. I incarnated with it. So I've been very poor in this lifetime from the start because I come from Soviet Union. So their money was like non-existent, nothing existed. But I always believed that I will be a millionaire. I just, of course, was totally logical to me. And that's exactly what's been happening as I've been living my life. So when I see a lot of people, it's almost like they have this amazing gift that the world needs, but they had no strategy as to how to bring it here. And the issue was always the wealth container was too small. Yes. Like their capacity for what could they hold was limited by their conditioning. And that always led my conscious understanding into helping them clean up the limitations to their wealth container so they can expand it. And then, of course, naturally out of that, the strategy is like, and this is how you do it.
Yeah. And particularly I find, people that are spiritual healers or star seeds or whatever, they don't feel like their gifts are enough to give them that wealth, or they shouldn't be charging for it. Those limiting beliefs come up around it. And you're right, if you don't have that container to hold it, you can make it, but then it also disappears as well, because you haven't developed that container to actually create that wealth for yourself and keep the momentum happening.
Yeah,
So,
that's the sustainability part, the momentum piece,
yeah,
because if somebody either doesn't believe they're worthy of getting paid, let's say $5,000 for their offer, they think it's only $300 worth.
yeah,
So that's literally an adjustment in perception, but self-worth is the issue to deal with. And
yeah.
also if they don't have the container, as in the practical thing, like let's say if they don't have an offer that's worth 5,000 and they only do individual sessions that they can charge $100 for. Well, yeah, that's true. They can't just charge 5,000 for $100 session, because that's out of integrity. That's like adding zeros to thing and just saying, well, why not? It doesn't work like that. You actually have to create a value. But what I find is that most of those people who are experts at what they do and just have self-worth issues, they actually have the value, but it's not packaged in a way to get paid for it.
Yeah.
That's part of the issue. Like somebody is doing amazing work and they overgiving and they just like changing person's lives, and then they're charging like $100. And then we look at what they actually doing, what value they're actually bringing, and we take it out of the individual sessions and we start repackaging this business. So it's not some spiritual practice on donation essentially, but actually a business that makes money while they are serving at the highest level that they could possibly imagine. So it's all in integrity. And then there's usually a relief, because they actually serving more, like they're doing more of what they want to do. But the business aspect of that is, well, the packaging, the pricing, the marketing setup, the market placement, like position in a marketplace, and all these things that they're too masculine for, I think, a lot of women in business. And so far, money has been owned by patriarchy. So that whole kind of a masculine way of looking at abundance, as in it's controlled, it's this way, those are all the rules. But in the quantum, everything is abundant. Every person can have access. Yes, you have to be in integrity, and yes, you have to provide value. And the more value you provide, the higher goes the amount of money that you can receive. So it's not random. You still have to do the work, but do the appropriate work to create what you're looking for. And I think that the feminine side, the more emotional type of people or intuitive type of people, are just too terrified to look at the business structures, because they associate them with out of integrity, salesy, masculine structures. And what I do is I take out of the masculine the good stuff and discard all this junk that's been controlling people for so long. And instead, we actually bring the structure. And I mean, this world, 3D world, requires structure, right? If we didn't have a skeleton, we will just like collapse into a puddle. So the business requires structure. It can't just be, well, I feel like it today and the energy came in and I'm going to just do this. There has to be a structure. But if that structure is aligned to who the person is, it feels awesome. It does not feel controlling. It does not feel limiting. But it's a balance of masculine and feminine.
Yeah. So do you find when it comes to self-worth, do you actually have to work on someone's self-worth with them? Or once you align their messaging and their strategy and, you put everything into a place where they're in integrity and they feel like they can charge for it, do you feel like, does that just shift? Or...
It's sort of a combination. I would say that the way that I work is, first of all, yes, I name, I find, and I show. But once something is shown, a lot of times, if the person is ready, like they hear the truth in it, they feel energetics of the truth of it, and it starts aligning and clicking in. Then it's the matter of self-discipline, self-responsibility of keeping track and not sliding into the lower self patterns, so that you learn, like you relearn, you retrain yourself. Sometimes the person kind of bumps into that wall of conditioning that almost feels like a self-threat, like, no, I can't let go of this, because if I if I, let's say, start charging more, then my community will leave me. Or if I say this, people would think I'm selfish. So then we have to look at where the power is, because those kinds of people have projection of their power onto either their community or somebody, usually a parent, who would then judge them if they behaved a certain way. So then we have to take that power back, which, yes, I do help people do that. And when they do, then it becomes, oh, I decide. Because really, in the quantum field, 100% possible, 100% of the time, everything. There is no right and wrong. We make this shit up, but there is no right and wrong. There's just is. So you decide what's in integrity, what's in alignment, what is divine, and what is not. And a lot of times that gets skewed by the programming we get when we're little, because our parents, even if they wish us the best, they kind of mess us up by the ideas that they have that are based on the overall planetary levels of their generation. I mean, look at how much change has happened even in the last 20 years. It used to be that the grandkids and the grandparents had very similar thing, right? Like horse and carriage kind of thing, like nothing changed. And now, I mean, the whole world changed. We have virtual reality. We have completely different environment now for perception. Even marketing, it's now online, when before you used to have to like put a flyer in the store or buy time in a commercial on TV or something. So everything has changed. And because it has changed, pretty much 99% of what we have been taught is not in applicable sense anymore to us. And that means finding our own inner navigation.
Yes. Yeah. And especially with entrepreneurs, because we have been stuck in generations of, working per hour for a set amount of money. You can't make more than that. That's what you get, and don't get upset. That sort of energetics around money. And it's, if you've never come from a line of entrepreneurs, if you've always come from a working class sort of family, that can be really hard to break through for yourself.
Exactly.
To realize actually abundance is everywhere and I can just tap into it and make it my own. So is this what you call wealth energetics? I know you work with wealth energetics.
Well, wealth energetics, it's this, yes, it's utilizing quantum field for the abundance flow. So energetics of how wealth flows. It can flow through you. So some people are meant to be conduits for it. So they get percentage of, let's say, connecting this person to that person, like that's their job. That's how they get paid. Some people are meant to bring something unique. This is the types I work with. That's kind of my niche, is the conscious coaches or healers or mentors or holistic professionals who do something through themselves. Like they have a gift that they bring to the world. Those kinds of people meant to have a container when money comes in, the wealth container that doesn't have holes in it. Because if it's a leaky bucket, no matter how much money comes in, it's not gonna have an impact. It's gonna disappear somehow on bills or some disaster that's self-created. So working on the energetical flow of wealth for each individual has to do a lot with personal responsibility, unavoidable piece here. So some people call it discipline, but pretty much that. That pairs with self-mastery, as in being masterful in who you are, so that you're not controlled by some programming from your childhood or social pressures, but that you're actually a leader, because without leadership, you don't have an expanded wealth container. And on another hand, self-worth and self-love. Because when we don't have that, the container shrinks, just because we start to then feel like, well, there's scarcity because we have scarcity, which means, oh, but they can't. Oh, but I have to help everybody. And as soon as you go there, if you imagine it like a pyramid, you're now on the bottom instead of at the top. So people who have a gift meant to be at the top.
Yes.
And when we forget that, we shrink our wealth container a lot. So wealth energetics is how we interact. I mean, you can interact with somebody from the place of abundance. Like even in marketing, I call it generosity-based marketing, when you're not marketing from the sales perspective, like buy from me, I'm the best in the place, buy from me, which is overly masculine and negative. But instead, from generosity standpoint of, I'm going to help you, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to show you this, I'm going to offer you a pathway, but still having a strategy to not kind of like give everything, because if we overgive, then that also doesn't work for business. So there is a line there as to how to give value in a way that compels people to come to us and purchase from us the actual gift that we're bringing. And that's wealth energetics, is how do you give value in a way that compels wealth to come your way?
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, so good diving so deep into this. So self-mastery, why is that such an essential component of becoming successful?
Well, if you think of a mastery is kind of like knowing yourself and being in conscious self-control, not in a negative way, like controlling, but conscious self-control. So if we don't have that, first of all, we end up being reactive instead of responding. We end up overdoing to compensate, or being overzealous in certain places instead of knowing what's ours, what's not. We end up trying to work hard to prove something instead of work responsibly and cooperate.
Yes.
And a lot of times also when the self-mastery is missing, the person cannot have full access to their inner navigation. And that to me is an essential part of leadership and wealth. Because if you cannot navigate yourself, you're forever at the mercy of somebody telling you what to do. And that somebody is always going to be a karmic pattern or programming from your childhood, because those will step in as soon as you leave. That's kind of how we design. Somebody's going to be in a driving seat. And if it's not us consciously, then it's going to be the voices from these other, you should do this. This is how you should do it. You're not good enough, or, prove yourself, push harder, do something. All these things that we kind of think is us, are us, they're not. They are programmed voices. So when we in self-mastery, we can recognize that. It does not mean they disappear. It does not mean you ascended master and no voices happen. No, you still have all the crap going on in there, but it's not affecting you anymore because you now can differentiate. That's the voice of my intuition. That's my inner body resonance to respond to life. And that's like what my mother would say. That's what my, social community would say. So you can still hear them all.
Yeah.
You can even utilize it. Like I teach my people to utilize it in marketing. You can say, well, the community might say this, but we know better than it's that. Like you can even weave all that in, and it actually makes you a better marketer. But being in self-mastery means you navigate you from the deep inner place. So if we link that to the soul design, that would be essentially living your soul design.
Yeah. Amazing.
Instead of just thinking about it or having it written somewhere and then saying, wow, I think I'm amazing, I wonder how to become that, but actually being that.
Eugenia, tell me, who is your ideal client? Who do you love to work with?
I love to work with conscious people who already have some business that they are passionate about, that they're building. They have a talent or some sort of an inner expertise, and they have a mission. They feel like they're here to change the world. There's something that they meant to bring. Like there is a bigger something that just, I want to make money to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. So when the person has this conscious awareness, desire to serve, and understanding that, yeah, I got something and it's awesome, I just not quite sure how to generate income to the next level. Like maybe they right now generating 5,000 a month or something like that, and they want to be past 6 figures. Maybe they're already at 6 figures, and that's actually happens a lot where somebody's at 6 figures and all their strategies that got them there do not work to scale on, and they end up at that constant burnout edge, and they're like, okay, what am I doing wrong? It doesn't seem to work. I always tell people that I'm the coach that's not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to help you be more you so that you know what to do. Yeah. So that's kind of the whole point, is somebody who's looking not for tell me what to do, not somebody who's going to be a guide to show them the way, but they already kind of have their own inner way, but they don't know practically what to do with it, and they want to wake up more of their power, but link it to abundance, so they actually bring wealth. Yeah, that's where I come in. So generally, it's somebody who's either has a business that's making money but not sustainable, and they want to figure out why is it not sustainable and how to make it sustainable, or it's somebody who is at the place where they trying to grow and they bumping into some of these issues that I was talking about. And I work with women, so that's part of my mission, is to bring wealth to women, because I think for so long women were kind of like assumed that we just can't generate money. And then it was more like a servant when women meant to serve at the highest level. I always talk about it like being a queen instead of being a girl that cleans the floor and washes the dishes. You can still wash the dishes if you feel like it, but you meant to be the queen. And a lot of times women kind of want it, but don't know how to get there. So that's the part that I work with.
Yeah, excellent. I recently heard it referred to as the witch wound. So, you know, burned at the stake for knowing too much, earning too much, having too much red hair, whatever it was, still suffering from that.
Well, a lot of people who are talented have that kind of a issue from the past. I would call it a tribal wound. So that's when you have the tribe turn against you because you were too different. And we're now in the 21st century in the different energetics in the world. We move from Piscean to Aquarian. So we're now in individuality is the thing. Leadership has to be individual. In a sense, if you want to lead and make money, and not just a little bit money, like, you know, 1,000 a month, but 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 a month, million a month, that means you have to lead. And the more value you give, the more you're going to be able to bring in the wealth. But that ultimately means stick out in the tribe. You have to be taller. So if somebody has that wound of, oh, but if I stick out and get killed, they putting a limit on their wealth container. Yeah.
Fabulous. And where's the best place we can find you? I'm going to put obviously your details into the show notes for the podcast. Where do you hang out? Where do you like to connect with people?
Well, the Facebook is sort of currently the thing, and the LinkedIn. So either of those places, the links are in the show notes. You can just Google my name or Facebook my name, and you'll find it. And I have groups where I post a lot of information on what's going on, including the planetary changes, including the business component. So all of that is in there. And to understand further what I was talking about, like how a coach who's conscious person can actually sustainably create 10K months or 20K months from doing their soul work, from doing their gift, and find these high ticket clients, as in people who will be paying you 5,000 or more for working with you without all these sleazy, you know, tactics. I have a webinar for that. So that's soulstrategywebinar.com. So if you just go there, you will be able to watch that for free, and it will explain a lot of this stuff.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I've loved diving into this with you. I'm definitely going to check out the webinar myself, and I'll put all the notes in the show notes. If you want to reach out to Eugenia, I'll find it in the show notes, and I'll pop all of her links in there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much. This was a really good opportunity to share this. And if this helps at least one person to understand that they actually meant to receive a lot of wealth, yay.
Yes to more wealth for all of us.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Empowered to Shine podcast. My name's Leonie Bolt, and I'm glad that you were able to join us today. I hope you got some serious inspiration from today's episode. If you'd like to find more episodes, go to leoniebolt.com/podcasts or start subscribing on your favorite podcast streaming channel. I look forward to seeing you again soon.